This is Tammy Basquet, and you are listening to Life Coach Life, the podcast, episode number 22. Oh, stress. Stress brings truth. At least it did for me this past week. It is incredible what our brains can select from an old memory file, like a 45 record in a vintage jukebox. My mom had a breakdown Christmas Eve. She's 93 with dementia, and we care for her in her home. We do all the things to keep her comfortable and peaceful within her own mind. A mind that suffered from being an orphan at the age of 6. A mind that was raised in dire poverty during the Depression. A mind that prided herself on her street smarts and her sharp tongue. And at times, a mind that created a self-imposed prison, albeit a beautiful prison, a beautiful environment, with aesthetic layers made in a foundation of anxiety and depression. Mom never accepted any kind of new ideas of serotonin-producing pills or cognitive behavioral therapy. She lived for the stars, the astrological stars, and the Mercury retrograde cycles in order to get by. During what I believe a medical doctor would describe as a psychotic break to her nervous system, as the sole witness, my brain got pushed way back somewhere in the 70s, and flashes of a scene of my sister running down the hall and screaming for me to get out of the house. A later scene of me laying on my beautiful canopy bed and my sister gently questioning me in a half sleep as to who I hated. Do you hate your teachers? No. Do you hate your friends? No. Do you hate school? Sometimes. But in all her questioning, she never asked the question that you should never ask. Do you hate mommy? I mean, sure, young people, teenagers have moments where they say, I hate you. But through it all, I had never said those words out loud until the other day. And I didn't say it to her. I said it to myself out loud in my car, alone in the dark, in a parking lot on Christmas Day. That was who my 8-year-old self hated. The one sitting and laying on that canopy bed being questioned, that was who my 8-year-old self hated. And the puzzle piece of that old memory clicked softly and gently right into place nearly 50 years later. That's amazing, right? Because if that 8-year-old me could have said those words to someone who really understood its meaning, that didn't have any bias or any flesh in the game, and could help me process it in a healthy way, I would not have had to keep it in my body so tightly and so protectively so as to not wound the wounded, as to not wound the soul of my mother more. My 3, 4, 5, 8-year-old self would continue to wound myself for a very long time for what I thought was for her sake. I was sick a lot as a kid. I missed 90 days of school in my last year of 10th grade. I was always told I was smart, but no one knew, no one cared to look at the emotional deficit I was working with from home And if it ever came close to being looked at, my mom would become highly defensive and literally would tell them to go fuck off. A school counselor came to our home once. It was a home adorned with beautifully selected antiques, a classical piano in the living room, all things that spoke softly to a visitor that we were cultured, right? All things tidy and pleasing to the eye. His assessment was that it was me. And he told me as much, that wherever I go, so I shall follow, or at least some version of that, that you are to blame for this in my 16-year-old mind. So back to the current day. A few days have passed now. From my history with Mom, I knew to block her number from both my home and cell phone after I left. Holding on to my stability longer than reality allowed, I was in no shape for receiving any kind of vile call or message. Dementia or no dementia, I know my mom, I know her patterns, and oddly, those neurons in the brain don't disappear. My phones are back on. When I couldn't be reached, she called my brother-in-law late at night to check on me because in her mind that day, I was homeless and I was sleeping in my car. So why am I telling you all this? Well, first, I love my mother more than words can say, and I have loved her for 57 years, and she has loved me, both of us in ways that don't look like traditional love to others, but obviously it's there. And I appreciate all the people that tell me what a saint I am, even when it's not involving my mother. People say that to me a lot, how strong I am. And it's nice, you know, it's a nice thing to say to people. And I truly appreciate thoughts and prayers. They really do mean something. But I always go inward first. I don't look outside of myself for accolades. I always go inward first to process my stuff, and then I post or write about it or do a podcast like this. So I'm sharing to remind us that everybody has their own path. The neurodiverse, the addicted, the dementiaed, the mother, the daughter, the brother, the sister. Everyone has their own path. When things get tough, we are all here to feel a wide range of emotions of hurt and anger and sadness and hope. It's a lot. So when you feel overwhelmed and begin to feel your emotions rise to the surface, I want you to remember to go in. Find your center. I physically had to leave the house several times to do this in short spurts until I can do a full-on release when I left a few days later. We don't need to wait for our loved ones to get better to start to feel good again, to feel joy and to feel happiness. And like me, if you feel completely exhausted from this ride called life, this is what you can do. The key to staying in the game with someone who is sick or violent towards you or berating you or struggling is to detach. The next time you're engaging with anyone in conversation and intense feelings begin to rise up in you, I want you to remember that what they are saying and what they are doing is their business. It is happening to them in their body, and that the story that they are saying is in their head. It's not true. It's not a fact. It is a story that is in their head. Take a deep breath. Say to yourself, self, I am separate right now from this person that I love. We are not one. We are not the same human being. I'm going to disconnect right now from all the feelings because this person is being very, very hurtful. I want you to use imagery to cut the tie. We have done this work in my empath workshop, and it came in handy for me personally on Christmas Eve. I visualized a rope from my heart to my mom's heart, and I gently cut it, and I freed myself. After you do this, wiggle your toes, feel yourself back in your body, feet on the ground, and remind yourself that you are the strong one in this moment. You are the reliable one, and you are safe and loved. You have everything you need in this moment, and you never need for the other person who is ill and dealing with their own illness to meet your needs. Take some deep breaths. Lose the judgment of yourself and the critical voice of yourself. There is no punishment to be had for you. Recognize that you are simply a witness to someone's illness, addiction, or pain. This is a skill. It's a beautiful life skill that any of us can create and make a part of our own identity. Empaths need this skill to survive. Sensitive souls need this training to survive. Intuitives must separate for their health and well-being. I'm all three. Perhaps you are too. Use this exercise whenever you need to, with family, your children, friends that go sideways sometimes. Listen, life goes on. I went on after quitting high school. I knew I didn't have a chance in hell of finishing under the circumstances. I completed my bachelor's. I attended Villanova for addiction counseling. I completed an incredible life coach certification with Martha Beck. I'm smiling as I say that because, boy, I've come a long way. And truly, I've done all this to help others. Help in a way that heals, that gives hope, that teaches us all that there's always options and there's always peace waiting for us. Be the person you needed when you were younger is what I live by now. I wish you all peace in these final days of the year. If you or someone you know needs compassionate coaching, a trained and skilled listening ear, some hope and healing for a better day, drop me a message, give me a sign. There is so much wonder, beauty, and love waiting for you this winter. Let's find it together. Okay, so that's a wrap, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'm here to remind you every so often so that you don't forget, your mind always matters. See you next year. Lots of love.